Hello, everybody, and welcome to Dear Booksplosion, our chit-chatty Booksplosion show.
Yay!
We have not done one of these in a long time, so we're excited to be here with you guys tonight. Tonight, we're going to be talking all things writing. It is the month of NaNoWriMo, even though I don't think any of us are participating, but that's all right. We're going to be talking about writing tonight, our writing projects and all that jazz. But first, an announcement for our next Booksplosion book of the month. Oh my gosh, I just found where the Gilded Wolves is. It's under my laptop right here. Wow. Before the live show. This is our Booksplosion book of the month for the month of November. And our live show is on November
28th.
I
was like,
6 Eastern Standard Time. And yeah, you guys should read it and join us for the live show. Does somebody want to explain what the book is about?
I'm tweeting about this live show.
I always forget.
I can, Kat, you want, or Jess, you want to start, and I can pick
it's a
up,
heist
just
book.
like start.
It's a heist book, right? It takes place in the 1800s. That's all I know.
It has like. So you want me to do it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So it takes place in Paris in the late 1800s, like the turn of the century, and it is a fantasy, but it's grounded in like the world that we know from like the late 1800s, and there's like these different groups of, I want to say like magic people, like different kind of like clans almost. And it's all like politicky and such with the different clans. And something is stolen from one of them. And then like there's a group of people that are working to like find that stolen thing, like a heist group that comes together. And it has like Dan Brown vibes in that like they're trying to solve a mystery, you know, and like finding all these different things. But it also has Six of Crows vibes in that there's like this crew that's working together to get back this object. I read the first like 150 pages when it came out and then had to put it down for like a deadline thing and never got back to it. So like my memory is like a little faded, you know, I don't know the exact details anymore, but I'm excited to go back and actually like read the whole thing and get the whole story because the characters are really fun and I was just getting into it when I had to put it down.
Nice. So yeah, that's what it's about. Our live show's on the 28th. You should pick it up, read it, and join us. We're excited about it. But tonight is our Dear Booksplosion live show. Again, this is just like a chill live show where we come together and talk about random things. Tonight we're talking about writing. So if you have any writing questions, drop them in the chat and we will get to them throughout the live show. But we're going to kick it off just talking about what we're currently working on. What are our current writing projects? Who wants to kick it off? Christine, how about you?
I can kick it off. I was just looking at our stream and it looks like very blurry.
Yeah, you look blurry to me.
Yeah,
but
you look
I don't know if it's my internet.
You look really blurry to me, and I look blurry, and Kat's the only one that doesn't look blurry. Oh, you know what? Maybe it's because I'm uploading some footage. Let me stop that from happening. Like, why is it so freaking blurry? I'm uploading to what's it called?
Also, let us know in the comments if you are participating in NaNoWriMo right now, because I'm really curious if any of you guys are participating. And tell us a little bit about your project.
I'm gonna just like refresh.
Okay, Clayton, do you want to just like kick it off and kind of talk about your stuff?
Sure. Well, I'm not doing NaNoWriMo this year, sadly. It was like the first year. It's not the first year that I haven't done it. Because I've skipped years in the past, but it's the first year when I just like didn't even consider it an option. I was just like, I am not in the right place to do NaNoWriMo right now. But I love NaNoWriMo, and even when I'm not doing NaNoWriMo, I like to fast draft my novels at like a NaNoWriMo equivalent pace. So it's not the November that's important to me. I like the NaNoWriMo pace regardless of what time during the year I'm doing it. I haven't been writing anything really lately. I've worked on a couple projects earlier there that we can maybe talk about a little bit later after you guys have given your brief intros.
Cool. Okay, sorry, I'll go. I'm sorry about that. I like Kat. Like what's more important, I feel like, is the style. Like the NaNoWriMo schedule is really helpful in writing a book, and I've never actually finished a book in November, but I've used that schedule to finish my books.
Your books tend to be much longer than 50,000 words.
Yeah. Yeah, and like when I was writing Better Together, I feel like I wrote like 100,000 words in like 13 days. Like it got real crazy. When the inspiration strikes, it hits. But like, yeah, the first time I did NaNoWriMo, like I've talked about this a lot, but it's been a while. I didn't realize how little 50,000 words were. You know, like I didn't realize how little of it. That was like my act 1. And I was like, wow, I'm not anywhere near the center of the book. How will I ever get there? And it's like 50,000 words is nothing. But anyway, my most recent project, that's what we were talking about, right? My most recent
writing lately. And
yeah. You just broke up on my end, but
what you've been working on lately, and if you were doing NaNoWriMo.
Yeah, so I'm not doing NaNoWriMo because I just finished a draft of Better Together, the final like big edits draft, and I handed that in. It was like super stressful. My deadline was 2 weeks, and 1 week was the election, and the week before my dog got sick. And it was just a stressful time to be trying to finish the book because the election lasted a week. I'm like, it's almost there. Because before election, you have that pre-election stress. And then like during the election, it's like incessant news checking for 7 straight days.
I didn't even attempt NaNoWriMo this year. I was like, I'm not going to mess with that today.
It was ridiculous. So somehow I managed to get that done, but it was really stressful. So right now I'm just taking a little bit of a writing break. I'm doing some filming, and I'll probably go back into attempting something new, maybe a little bit in December, and then at the end of December I get Better Together for like first pass pages. So go back to that. Yeah, I saw someone in the chat asking like if I wrote again, but better for fun, like NaNoWriMo style, or if I plan to get it published. I know at that point, like I wanted to write a book and I wanted to be an author, so I was doing it with like the hope that one day it'd be published. But yeah, Better Together comes out 6/1/2021. Oh, someone answered you. Yeah, June 1st, 2021. It's available for pre-order now if you go to ChristineRiccio.com. There's a link right there. Thanks for asking. Okay. Why is writing a chore now? Who said that?
Huh?
Someone asked why is writing a chore now? Sorry. Jesse, you tell us about your stuff before we go into questions.
Dang, I thought we could skip over me. Well, let's see. The last time I wrote consistently was NaNoWriMo of last year. So it's been a long time. I was doing so good last November, writing every day, and then it was like the Charleston trip to YALLFest. Like coming home.
Ruined it?
Yeah, like coming home from that trip, I had like a flight issue and I had to like stay over the night in some random city. And I was like, oh, I'll just take one day off. Like I'm tired from this like YALLFest trip. I did not get back on that horse. Like I let it go. It went off without me, so I haven't written since then. And this year has just been trash. And I don't know how anybody wrote this month during the election, but props to you. You did it. I'm proud of you because I don't know how anybody wrote anything during that. Christine, I don't know how you did it. But yeah, I have not written since then. I do want to get back on it. It might not be till like mid 2021 though, honestly, just because of like some things that are coming up. But
it's what you kind of mentioned is the momentum thing. Like
it's all about that momentum.
You're doing it every day, and you like can keep your head in the book and in the world, and like engaged with the story.
Yeah.
It's so much easier. And like as soon as you fall out of that, like you're doomed.
I was doing good on the YALLFest trip. Like I was writing every day when I was in Charleston for YALLFest.
Yeah, you were in your notebook.
Yeah. The one day after where I had that travel mishap, I just like got off it and it just ruined everything. But I do, that's what I love about NaNoWriMo is that mentality of just like getting in the groove of doing it every day and like having everybody around you, like on Twitter and everything, like participating in NaNoWriMo, like you just feel the hype and it's just so much fun. But like also it is hard to kind of maintain it over time.
Yeah. Those are the two key things for me is the everyday thing, and it helps me keep up that momentum, but also it's only for 30 days. So I don't have to like think about like, oh, I need to maintain working every day for 6 months. Like I can do it in a shorter burst, and like I know I can actually maintain that.
Yeah, well, that's like that was the issue for me because like 30 days wasn't gonna be enough.
Yeah.
So like I got to then and it's like I gotta keep fucking going. Like I gotta do another 30 days. I did 3 months like that before I was like, I can't do this like this anymore. Yeah. I just did like after that though, it was easy to like put an hour aside a day, or just even when you were tired, when I was tired at night and I'm going to bed, I'm like, okay, this has to be my hour because I didn't get to it today. It's harder now. My first book, it was so easy to do that. And now it's like, I don't know if it's I'm older or it's just like there's more pressure or something. Like I find myself really struggling to do like an hour every day. I have to like sit for longer than that and do like bigger chunks instead of like little bursts.
Well, you had less time to write the second book.
Yeah. That's a factor.
Yeah. I mean, also what you were mentioning earlier about how like 50,000 words, like how little it is. It like technically that's a novel, but it's like 250 pages. So it's like a very short book. So even most books are going to be closer to 100,000 words than to 50K, which is another thing to think about. Because like 50K for a lot of people is half a book or a third of a book.
I do not understand how people write books that are 65,000 words. Like, I just don't get it. I don't understand how it happens. Like, it's like the shortest book I've ever heard. Like, I see like these authors with their target goals of 65K, and I'm just like, how are you doing a whole book in 65K? How does that happen in the first draft? How does it happen in any draft?
Wait, how much was your
short drafts? So I relate to that. But that's like, they're not at all polished. It's like a lot of shorthand. It's like, Christine, what your outline looked like when you had like a 30,000 word outline.
Yeah,
that's what my drafts look like. They're like that, except a little bit longer. But you'll put like bits of dialogue stuff in the like. That's what mine is. It's like a fleshed out outline. It's not a real draft.
Yeah, I mean, so Better Together is 120,000 words, and like Again But Better was 111,000 words. Yeah, it's longer, and it's because it's two characters and like two arcs and like two stories that don't always flow together. Like for a lot of the book, they're not together. So it's just like I couldn't cut. So and I got notes from one of my close friends who like gives notes for a living. So she like couldn't get to my book until like the last second. And like she was asking me like, where's this? Like, can we see this? And like, can we see? And there's like stuff I had to cut ages ago. And I was like, oh my God. Like, I can't add these back in right now. So I was going through and like trying to add like little bits to like kind of fill in like the blanks that she was feeling a little bit. And I went up to 121,000 words.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So it's not one of my talents to write short books. I can't do it. I like longer books anyway, so that's probably why I write like that.
Yeah.
It's nice to be settled in the world and like you really get to know the characters when you have more work to hang out with them.
Yeah. I just recently did that little, for Y'allfest, I did a short live with Sasha talking about first drafts. And we were talking about outlining for like a second, but I mentioned how helpful Kat's video, how to outline, was. And I've been getting messages like, what were you talking about with those questions that you answered that helped you with your outline? And I'm like, oh, County Testing's video, go find it. It's called How to Outline.
I'm surprised that so many people found that helpful, because when I first was doing that video, I thought it was like so basic. So I'm like, ask who, ask where, ask why. But it really helps you to like get those prompts, like dive deeper into your ideas and like think about these questions and like brainstorm possibilities.
Yeah, it sounds so stupid and simple, and then like you do it and it's like, whoa, that helped so much. Okay, do we want to look at questions in there?
Sure.
I see one that somebody asked me real quick, but Heather said, is it hard to write better together while filming writing vlogs? And like the writing vlogs made it actually fun to take breaks to like update, because it's fun to vent while you're writing those first few drafts. I didn't do them for these last two drafts because I had the dog and I was so overwhelmed. Like I couldn't, in those spare moments, I had to be attending to him or like asleep. And I kind of, it sucks that I don't have them because I like looking back on them. So it's not hard without a puppy around.
Yeah, no, I love doing writing vlogs. I feel like it keeps me so on track because it gives me like a goal to do each day of just filming a little clip of like what I did for writing. And again, like you said, Christine, it's so nice to be able to look back at those and to like rewatch them and remember.
Yeah.
We have this question. I've tried to start my novel so many times, but always some work or studies come in between. How do you manage to find time for writing with all your work?
You kind of, it's just like reading, like you have to like carve it out. And
I think if it's something that you really want to, like, you will make the time no matter what kind of a situation.
You have to make the time. It's not like you have to be very active in carving out the time. Not just like, oh, I'll write when I have time and just kind of taking it passively or like when the mood strikes. You try schedules if those work for you. Try to do an hour a day and just put that in wherever you can. But like set minimum time goals or word count goals for every day and don't skip days. And like you might have to sacrifice other things like watching TV shows or YouTube videos or even reading or making videos or something, but you just gotta find that balance and make the time, which sounds like really helpful advice, but that's just what it boils down to.
Yeah, I mean, it's always like that. Like people say, how do you read that much? It's because like when you're reading that much, you're carving out time to do it, because like we all have so much to do all the time. So it's just about like prioritizing what's important to you in the moment. And if it's too hard right now because of like other work, like maybe it's just not the time for your brain to like take on another thing.
Yeah, when I'm working on a writing project or when I'm just trying to like do more reading or whatever, I will cancel my Netflix subscription and my Hulu for the month.
You go to the extreme.
I currently don't have a Netflix subscription. I'll get back to it, of course. I love wasting time on Netflix, but you gotta do what you gotta do, man.
I feel like every little bit counts too. Like even if you just have 15 minutes to write in the day, like that's 15 minutes to get in, you know, like just
try to do like a 20-minute sprint. It's like, because 20 minutes goes so fast if you just set a timer on your phone. I remember trying to give a better outline and like forcing myself to do 20 minutes, and it was like pulling teeth. Like I hated outlining so much, and like I feel like that's how it is when you start any book where you're like just unsure of how like the perfect start. So you're like, just do it.
Book Lover asks, do you guys listen to music while writing?
Yes, most of the time. For the last time I was writing, I listened to a lot of ambient noise. Like I would listen to like rainstorms, and a lot like YouTube kept prompting me with various like on videos that I would just watch, like thunderstorms and crackling fire. So I did do a lot of that like background noise. But sometimes it's hard for me to write to songs that have lyrics because I get too distracted by it. If I can find a song that I listen to on repeat enough that it becomes background noise, then I can easily write to that. But if I'm like listening to new music, my focus gets too split.
Yeah, I'm pretty much the same as you. Like I can't listen to a vocalist singing, but like I like lo-fi music on like YouTube and stuff. I love those playlists. I always have those on when I'm writing, and they really help me get in the mood. Christine?
I always usually like to write to music. Again, but Better was very much like I needed to have music on. And I'm kind of like the opposite of Kat. Like a lot of times, if I know something too well, sometimes I'll be like distracted. But if it's new music, it's kind of like background noise to me because I don't know the lyrics. Like, for example, like the new Taylor Swift album came out when I was still writing Better Together. And like I would find myself concentrating too much on those lyrics because I didn't know them well enough, but I knew them enough that I wanted to like know more of the story. So there's like a zone. Like if it's brand new, I can do it. And if it's like really old and I know it so well, I can do it. But if it's like I'm interested in this music and it's fairly new, it's not gonna happen for me. But for Better Together, it was different. Like a lot of times, sometimes I couldn't use music and I just do silence. And then like Kat with the ambient noise, I did write to rain a lot when I was just like overwhelmed. I was like, okay, I just need rain noise. Yeah, but most of the time to focus long-term, I need a song going in the background long-term. If I'm like going for hours, I need a song in the background.
And also, I feel like, Christine, you're probably the same way where even if you're not actively writing to a song, you still have songs that you associate with a lot of the scenes and chapters that you're writing. Because I do that as well. Like sometimes I need to like find the right song before I know it's the mood of the scene.
Yeah, that's another thing that was like really different with Better Together because I didn't always have that. And I'm so used to having it before. Like it was so ingrained in me before. And in Better Together, I'm trying to make a playlist and I'm just like, I have to really think about this because I didn't pre-think about this. I was like writing to rain.
The Write Books asks, what time of day do you get the most writing done?
Ooh.
Night. Or, you know what? This switched for me now that I have a puppy. But it was always night. How about you guys?
I feel like for me, it's right when I wake up. Like I just have to like start off, like go right for it. Cause like otherwise I get distracted with like a bunch of other things throughout the day. And like when it comes, like nighttime comes around, like I don't want to write. So I have to do it like right when I wake up. Otherwise I'm like super distracted.
You know what? Kat says this thing about like doing something productive in the first hour of the day, right? Is that
like, I try to get to it within the first hour of the day or else I start losing time.
Yeah. When I was doing Better Together, like the second draft or something, I was like, okay, let me try like doing this the second I wake up. And I found that the days where I would start the day, like I wouldn't even get out of bed. I just put the laptop and start writing. I would be so in the book for the entire day. But if I didn't do that, it would take me hours and hours and hours to like sit down and like get my head in the game, so like that really works.
That's one big thing that's changed about my writing process over the years is because before I used to be all about that night writing life. Like you couldn't get me out of bed before noon. So like there was no way I was writing in the morning. But now I wake up early and again, a key thing is getting to do at least a little bit of work within the first hour of the day. You know, I'll give myself time to get coffee and like check the internet and all that stuff that I just have to do. But like checking into the book early on, it helps you stay engaged with it throughout the day. Whereas even if you have to step away from the computer, it's easier to come back to it later that night again.
It really is.
Engage with it. It's
almost like you calibrate your brain in the morning to the story. and then like you're all calibrated for the rest of the day.
Exactly. And otherwise, if you try to do it later in the afternoon, it can be harder to get in that mindset. Whereas like in the morning, you wake up, you're not even completely awake yet. If you engage with the story, then you can like get locked in.
Are we frozen on the screen?
I saw a little bit of lag.
Oh, it went back. Okay.
Okay, good.
Someone said, how long do you concentrate when you write? And do you find it better when you take breaks in between? Do you see that one?
I'll find it.
But anyway, Kat, do you want to answer that?
What's the question? How long do you concentrate?
Usually, how long do you write for? Do you find it better to concentrate when you take breaks in between? So, like, I feel like this varies depending on where you are in the story.
For me, it's more of I do well jumping back and forth once I've engaged in the story. Like, I'll usually start with like a decent writing session of like maybe an hour or two. But then throughout the day, it's easy for me to like check Twitter, check YouTube, log into the book for 10 minutes and type a little bit, then go back to YouTube or whatever. So I do a lot of bouncing around and just sort of like, I always have my Word doc open when I'm like actively working on a story, and I'll rotate, between all my social media tabs and my book. Like it'll be just another thing I click on. So I am constantly like checking in with it throughout the day. Which has been really productive for me because I'll write like a couple hundred words every little mini session. But by the end of the day, I have written a couple thousand words.
I cannot do that. I cannot have all my tabs open because I'm like a crazy tab checker. But in the beginning, I find it like when it's hard for me to write it, like it's not coming out smoothly. Like I find it much more productive to like take a break every half an hour and like come back and then keep going. Because then you get frustrated when you're sitting there not doing anything for a long period of time, or when it's not coming out of you. And if you get frustrated, it gets harder and harder to like put down more words. But for me, that's how it happens in my brain. I'm like, oh my God, why aren't you doing anything? And like the more time passes, I'm like, what is wrong with you? So I'll like get up and like do some yoga or take a walk or like have a snack and then come back and try to do another 20-minute burst. But once you're in the story, like usually I'll like sit down for like an hour to 2 hours and write. I know like my longest stretch was 5 hours while I was working on that third draft. And like I sat down and I was so in the zone. I looked up and 5 hours had passed. It was like, holy God, how did this happen?
I need some of that energy. Can you send it my way?
That was like one of those, like during that week of like a gajillion words. Like,
right.
That'll do it.
Yeah. But breaks are definitely helpful. I feel like if you're having trouble writing, because
you probably need the break.
You need the break to recalibrate.
My like checking the other tabs is it's like a break, but like I still have the story like working somewhere in the back of my head. Like I'm not actively engaged with it, but if I like a line of dialogue pops in, then I can go and throw that into the document.
Yeah, I guess like I'll get lost in those and like just keep scrolling and then come back like so much longer than I wanted to take the break for. So I guess it's like how your brain works in terms of like sticking in the story.
Right.
I mean, things where it's about figuring out you as a writer, because like everybody's going to have different methods. And I think it's really important to encourage newer writers to experiment a lot and to try all sorts of different methods. Like, like I'm here saying like, try to write within the first hour of the day. That's not feasible for some people. That doesn't work well for some people. Like some people do have that burst of inspiration. I used to be one of the people who could only write at night and who couldn't during the morning. So like, every piece of writing advice you get, like play around with it, see if it works for you, but don't hold anything that someone says is like their method, like the method, because it's different for everyone, even from project to project.
Yeah, and if it's always worth it to give it a go if you can do it and you're having trouble. Like I was saying with like the cat thing, I was like, okay, let me try doing something like that, and it works so well. So you never know what's going to work for you, and when it does, like, okay, you have that tool now, you can use it.
Yeah, and that's one reason why I encourage so many people to do NaNoWriMo, to see if that works for them, because it's not going to work for everyone. The NaNoWriMo method is not a feasible way of writing for plenty of people, but I encourage people to try it and to see if it works, or and to figure out if it doesn't work for you. You can analyze, like, why didn't it work for you? Was it the everyday thing? Was it the pressure of like so many words per day? Do you need more time to outline? Do you need more time to write? Like, it's just about experimenting and finding your method.
Someone said Kat is just full of good advice, and she is just like an encyclopedia for writing advice. She knows all the writing things.
I need her to bring back the writing videos.
Yeah, I feel like I have like 300 writing videos on the channel. From all like writing advice to like writing vlogs, NaNoWriMo. Yeah.
So we want to do the question at the bottom here.
Hey, Jesse made it go away.
Jesse, where did it go?
I thought you said like at a new comment, I'll grab it.
No, I was like,
oh, I think this one, but we haven't answered it yet.
Oh no, that's what I was referring to. Kat, you want to start answering that?
Yeah, what was it? It was about if
it was, have you ever been so into an old project that it's hard to jump into a new one?
Yes, absolutely. This is why I have had trouble. This is why I usually take long breaks in between books. And like when I take breaks in between drafting and revising, like I like to take a month off or so to like give a little breathing room from that book. I find it hard to even work on anything in the interim period because I'm like still so like half mentally into the other one. It takes me a long time to like mentally detach enough from a project to be able to like fully immerse myself in a new project. So that's definitely something I struggle with. I've tried in the past to like work on multiple projects at a time. And I can do that.
Hard, man.
I can only do it if I'm engaged in them in a really shallow way. Like I can't get like fully immersed multiple projects at a time. It's really hard for me. I don't know if I have any good advice for this question.
I feel like I recently
break. It's okay to like not work on anything for a while.
Yeah. I mean, unless they're both due, and then you have to do it. Because I feel like I was fully into Better Together when I had to write this extra chapter for Again But Better, and like I couldn't do it. I was like, oh my God, I'm like completely out of that headspace. I don't know what to do. So I went back and watched and I tried to read some of Again But Better, and I was like, I can't do this. I can't. Like, I finally was able to read like the last two chapters again. So, cause it takes place after those two chapters, and like get in that headspace. But it was after I like watched all the movies that had some part in inspiring Again But Better, and like really trying to get back in that space because it was just like so far away from me. And then once I got back in there, it was like so fun, but it's so hard to jump. And so it was like not even I was trying to go back to the old project when I was in the new one. And I'm just trying to work on that skill of like being in both, because things will start to overlap, I feel like, because now I have to go to a new project, but I'm still kind of in Better Together. Yeah, it's hard. So I think what works is trying to find something that inspired the new project to like try to switch your mindset. I think was a thing that actually helped a lot. Like different media that reminds you of what you're trying to do can help you like break out from the old one and re-inspire the new project that you want to do.
Yeah. And also like just being patient with yourself. Like it's not something that is necessarily easy to like disengage and re-engage like at will. So if it takes time to like put closure on one project and move on to another project, like that's okay.
Yeah. And I think it's a skill that like hopefully we can hone and get better at, like the more you practice jumping between projects.
This person asks, how do you guys avoid writing unlikable characters? Do you draw from yourselves or past characters you related to?
Well, so I mean, every character has some aspects of them that are flawed or else they're like really boring. It's about like finding the balance, I think, between their flaws and the likable bits. I feel like I was really concerned about this in the beginning of Better Together because like these characters are very flawed. But you find the balance as you write, you know, as you go further in. And a lot of times, like even in the beginning, if a character feels unlikable, like you're going to get to know them and understand them more as you read.
Yeah.
Give them a second to develop and like figure out why they're acting the way that they're acting. It's just like, I feel like their unlikability is actually like some depth that you're going to get into.
Right.
It gets boring if it's nothing like that.
Yeah, if they do have unlikable traits, like you can give them likable traits as well. Like, you know, if they are like, I don't know, maybe they're a character that some people would think as annoying. Like maybe they're like really energetic and chipper and like constantly interrupting people. And you know that like some people might think that they're annoying, but you give them likable traits too. Like maybe they're really loyal or sweet to their friends, stuff like that. But as for the other part of the question, do you draw from yourselves? I feel like every character I've ever written has been some aspect of myself.
Yeah.
Just like different traits and different like manifestations of things I like or ideas I've had. But for a lot of the time, characters that I create are more built than inspired from something. Like I'll think a lot about like what their goals are, what they want and what they need, and how those things are often different and can even be contradictory, which is a really interesting thing. Like, you know, characters want to be left alone, but they need to be loved or something like that, you know? And so what they're inclined to do is the opposite of what they really need. And that just creates a really interesting conflict within them. So that's normally what I do when it comes to creating characters is I build them around like contradictions because people are contradictions in themselves.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like there's pieces of you in every character because that's how you start the spark of who they are and like make them a real person and like that's how you can get into their voice. And it's like maybe a tiny piece of you, but you grow that by like doing what Kat said, by building their backstory. And like creating a person out of this like shade of you. Everyone has a little bit of you. You're like, you can relate to them in some way. That's why you can write them.
Yeah.
I also build a lot of my characters based on tropes or like elements that I like, especially like relationship dynamic tropes. So like one person is happy and cheerful and the other is like sulky and moody. So I'll like give them those two like basic traits and then build into that even more.
Yeah. I feel like the most helpful question from your outline video, like building the characters, is like, what do they want? And like, what's stopping them from getting it? And, you know, there's lots of different things that stem just from those two questions. Yeah. Should we do another question?
Yeah. How do you guys find motivation to write when you are not motivated? I need this advice currently, so let me hear it.
You force yourself to do it a little bit every day if it's important to you. You don't have to write. Don't write a book. Just write something.
A little bit.
Just write a journal entry. Just write a list. Just do something. Like write 2 sentences about how you're feeling. I think that just doing a little bit of writing will help you slowly get more motivated to put things on paper.
Yeah. So building off of that, I did this year when I was feeling completely unmotivated to work on my own works. Am I going to confess this? Yeah, I'll confess this. I wrote a lot of fan fiction this year.
Nice.
Like a lot of I wrote a novel-length fan fiction. But it really helped. It was like purely for fun, which is why it was so easy for me to like let go. And like, I didn't have to feel motivated because like nobody knew I was doing this. You guys didn't even know I was doing this. So there was no like there was no outside pressure. I was doing it purely for myself and purely for fun. And that helped me like really get excited about writing again when I was in a place where I wasn't super excited about writing.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, exactly. Like, do something that's fun or that's helpful. Like, if you just need an emotional release, just like write down how you're feeling or like what was shitty about your day that's making you feel like you could put anything in paper. And it's like, if you feel like you're whiny, it doesn't freaking matter because you're just like getting it out and it's healthy. And like, you're only helping yourself. So like a lot of times I'll just like write down lists of things that I need to do. And then like, I'll start writing lists of like videos I want to make. And then like, that'll just spark all these other things in my head. Like I want to write this down and write this down. Like just putting something on paper is so helpful.
Yeah. And I mean, sometimes when you don't have motivation, it's because you need to refill the well. You know, maybe you don't need to be writing and creating, but you need to be
inspired.
Yeah. So read some favorites, rewatch some favorites, or start tackling. I'm sure y'all have grand TBR piles that need to be tackled. Like choose some books out of there. Choose some movies you've been meaning to watch, TV shows. We live in a day and age where there's so much amazing content out there. Like you can just keep consuming until you find that spark again.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a very helpful. Like that's like also helpful when you're writing and you're stuck, you know, just like find pieces of content that are similar to what you're writing, and it's going to help your brain like subconsciously start working out where to go from where you're stuck.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a pressure for writers to get published young? Asks Batty Boo.
I feel like there's like an unnecessary excitement on it that puts that pressure on you, but really it doesn't. Like everyone's on their own path, so it shouldn't be. I remember thinking that in college, like, oh, it's so cool to be a writer who's published at like 23, and like I remember I saw Maggie Stiefvater. She was 29, and I was like, oh man, she got published older, and I was like, now I'm like, wow, I can't believe I ever thought that.
Yeah, I think that mentality is really popular among teenagers and people in their early 20s, and I don't think it's necessarily just about in the publishing world and writing. Like when you're that age, you feel like if you aren't successful in your chosen venue of pursuit by the time you're 25, then you're too old and you're a failure. And I thought that way for years. I put so much unnecessary pressure on myself. And now in my 30s, I am so glad that I did not publish a book when I was in my early 20s. Just because I know how much I've grown by now. And now I know that it's not too late.
Not at all.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you look at so many huge authors, I mean, even like Colleen Hoover started her career at 30. And like now she's 40. She's published so many like best-selling novels. She has a huge following. Like her career started in her 30s. So it's so did someone else really huge that I don't want to really talk about, but like a lot of people careers really they don't figure out what they're doing until they're in their 30s, and that's completely fine.
I'm actually curious about this. Have any of you ever thought about writing a thriller?
Yes, I want to so bad.
Really?
The thing about it would be a romantic thriller, but like I always think about that. I haven't had like my perfect thriller idea. I have like soup ideas. I'm just like it's just a blob of like I kind of want to do this and this and this, but I haven't put it into something that is going to be a book yet. But I want to. Like it's in my cabinet.
I don't think I would ever write something that was like primarily thriller, but incorporating thriller and like mystery aspects into other like stories. Like I'll write a fantasy, but it'll have like a more like thriller edge to it. But I'm a little intimidated by thrillers just because there are so many expectations of having like a plot twist and like being super engaging and like all that pacing. Like, and thriller fans are opinionated, and they know what they like, and they're also really good at figuring out plot twists. And
Right.
Everyone is opinionated, but every fan. But what was I gonna say? Mine would I wrote like a satiric comedy thriller as like one of my final script in college, and like I wanted to I like constantly thinking like how can I make that into like a book, sort of a because it's so much fun. And mine again wouldn't be like a serious thriller. It'd be like a thriller with like comedic backdrop and romance. But like it just is so I love thrillers like that. Like I love this is so dark and it wouldn't be this dark at all, but like Verity. Yeah. But anyway, yeah, like I don't think it's you shouldn't. Don't put that pressure on yourself, like what people are gonna think. Like you write it if you want to write it.
Well, it's not just about the pressure. It's also like I don't know if I could do it justice. I'm also not super familiar with the thriller genre. I don't read a ton of them, so I feel like I would have to read more and like get more into that. I feel like that's a genre that I might enjoy reading more than I would enjoy writing. Because like I've read and enjoyed a couple, but I don't know if it's the kind of thing I would want to write.
Yeah.
What about you, Jesse? Are you ever going to write a thriller?
I doubt I'll write it, but I did have an idea a few years ago that I wrote down, but I don't know that I'll ever revisit it. So I feel like I don't read enough thrillers to like really even know the genre too, do you guys see any questions?
I saw one that kind of like now is coming back to me because it's a script, but someone said like, what is the difference in the stories you can tell when writing scripts versus writing a whole book? And it's just like, it's a different medium. So in a book, you can put so much more into it in terms of detail and like getting to know the characters and how they think. And like, a script is so condensed and it's so visual. And
also so just dialogue heavy. It relies entirely on dialogue.
It does, and that's what I love about it, and that's why like my books end up being so long because I'm not just putting like all the book stuff, but I'm also putting like a shitload of dialogue that I'll have to delete after. So it's like a completely different mindset. Like when I first started trying to write a book right out of college, I could not do it because I was like so stuck in script mode. But now, like. And I think about writing a script. I'm like, am I going to be able to bounce back now that I've gone like full on 120,000 words? The script is 120 pages max, and they want
Oh my gosh. Gigi Velvet Books asks, how do you come up with a good first sentence? I find it so hard. It sets the mood for the entire story.
Jesse, do you have thoughts on this? You haven't been giving.
I know, I haven't been giving insight. I honestly usually skip the first line and then we'll come back to it at a later date because I feel like it's so daunting to like start off with that. Like it does define the whole novel, and so it doesn't define the whole
Which
novel.
Which is why you should write it last.
Yeah, because like you don't fully know your story when you're starting it out necessarily.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever come up with the first line as the actual first line that I've come up with. Like I'll usually have the first scene. I'll know what I want to do for that, but like setting up into that first line is something that I usually come to later. But I think my best piece of advice for this is and this is not just for the first line of the book, but also the first line of like every chapter or every scene, is to try to ground the reader in the moment as much as you can with that first sentence. Like give a detail about like where they are, what they're doing, like the location, who they're with, who's talking, like try to ground them in the moment and give them concrete details as soon as possible. Because if you start with like just dialogue going back and forth, you feel just kind of like you're kind of floating. You're just like above the scene. You're not like in it. So just try to do grounding details early on in the scene, and then you can get a little more abstract as the scene goes on. But you need to like, give someone something to latch on to and to be able to picture it before you can get into like imagery and ideas and metaphors.
I just like going back to like writing the first sentence, like Jesse was saying, like you should just not worry about it until you come back around. Like, and even then, it's probably going to change every draft unless you found the perfect one already. But like, I remember for Again But Better, I think I sent like 4 different first sentences to like everyone, like Kat and Jesse, like Natasha, like a bunch of people, like, which one do you like the best? And I think like one of them, Kat, was like, what if you just said this? Like, we just like brought it shorter and like made it, I think I had like a really long run-on sentence. like first sentence for Again But Better. But then it finally hits, like, you're like, oh yeah, this is the one, because you know the book, you know where it's going, you know your characters so well, and then it feels so much better. Because like with Better Together, my first sentence, I was like not happy with it for so long. I was like, I'm gonna come back to it. I'm gonna come back to it. I'm gonna come back to it. And I finally come back to it, and I wrote like 100 other first sentences, and I didn't like any of them. And I finally changed the first scene, and now it's a sentence that was like the first sentence of a chapter for a long time, and it ended up working. But yeah, it's weird. I think every project too is going to be a different process for your first sentence.
What's the first sentence of Again But Better? Is it like, I'm leaving the country because I have no friends?
Yes.
Yeah. That tells us so much in one single sentence.
Right.
If you have this character who has no friends, they're traveling, they're doing something drastic because they have no friends. Like, it paints such a picture with just that one line.
Yeah. I'm like, I worry that like Better Together doesn't have as fun of a first sentence. And like also with 2 characters, it's like, are both characters the first sentence on their first thing? I just didn't worry about that. Like, I'm not going to do another first sentence.
JR asks, chapter titles, do you write them before or after completing the draft?
During. At times.
It depends. Yeah.
I tend to have placeholders for, like, some of them, the title will come really easily. Sometimes it has a placeholder like up until the very end, and then I just have to like decide on something. A lot of, like, I think for the last actual book that I wrote, not fanfic, I didn't have chapter titles. It was just like chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. But I had chapter titles in my head and in my Scrivener doc that I called them things, but that weren't actual. But they like weren't going to be actual titles that were shared with anyone. It was just so I had an idea of like what that chapter was.
For mine, it was like, in Again But Better, I like automatically had chapter titles in mind. For Better Together, I just like called them chapter 1. I started with chapter titles, but I was like, these aren't coming to me fast, because also like with the 2 point of views, I switch back and forth pretty quickly sometimes. So the chapters are like short sometimes, and it's just coming up with so many titles was slowing me down. So I just did it, I think on like draft 3, I went through and named them all, and then I changed them all again with draft 4 because I needed some sort of pattern. Like, the chapter titles don't matter as much sometimes because you're switching back and forth so quickly. It's almost like you're just gonna get past this in like a minute.
Yeah.
And some books, for some projects, chapter titles don't work, and it's better to just have chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3.
Yeah.
I like to have a title so I can like remember like this is the part for this, you know, like, and go to that chapter. Yeah, because like numbers just will blend away. And I think like having a title is sometimes fun when you like close the book and come back to it. Like with Rick's books, I love like Magnus's chapter titles and how ridiculous they were. They just add some pizzazz and attitude that I miss when it's not there.
I'm boring and I just do chapter 1, chapter 2. I've yet to get to like the chapter title portion of a book. So
well, maybe eventually you'll feel it. If not, it can be chapter 1, chapter 2.
Let's see. Probably got 2 more questions in us. Let's do this one. How do you tackle world building?
Cat.
Big question, but how do you tackle it?
Gradually, by asking a lot of questions and like very gradually filling things out. it varies so much on like what kind of world you're doing. Like even a contemporary story, you're still doing world building and like the locations that they're going to be at, like world building for their school or their town or whatever. And like when it gets to like a big fantasy story, like you can be doing world building for like politics in this world, that whole magic systems, customs and food and religions and like so much stuff. I'd actually recommend Brandon Sanderson has a lecture series here on YouTube where it's been recorded and uploaded for a couple of years, and you can just choose like the most recent year. I think it was, I don't know if he's currently doing one. I think he was, but then the pandemic hit. But just watch some of his videos on world building, because he does an hour-long lecture that like really breaks down techniques and things you can do. Actually, I would recommend his entire lecture series. Like if you want to take a creative writing class, but you maybe don't have that available to you, he teaches a creative writing class and they record it and upload it on YouTube for anyone to watch. It's a really cool resource. I'll recommend that.
Yeah. Okay, last one. Is writing a book more like baking a wedding cake or building a boat?
Building a boat.
I mean, between those two options,
yeah,
I want to say baking a wedding cake.
I don't put, maybe because of you're such like a plotter. I feel like you have your ingredients. For me, it's like building a boat. Like I have to, it's not just done after I throw in some ingredients, because I can't throw in ingredients.
Well, that's not the reasoning I was thinking. I was thinking like first you build the like rough batter of it, but then you have to like do all the decorating and like fondant. And,
I'm more thinking
layered experience.
I'm thinking more like the time consumingness of it and like how complicated the directions are in terms of like not sure.
I was thinking more scale for you because your books are big, so like boat kind of matches.
Lots of different ways wedding cake doesn't boat work for me.
But I mean, it's all up to interpretation, because like you could build a really tiny ass little boat. And you could build like a really huge cake. So like it depends. But I consider my process to be more like doing a sculpture. So I start with like this hunk of
I like that too.
And then slowly I like reveal a form and like polish certain parts of it. So yeah, I like
definitely
because you start with a hunk of an idea.
Right.
Like do layer after layer of refining.
Yeah, that's the way I've thought about it in my brain in the past. Like it's like you have this giant chunk and you need to figure out what's inside it.
Yeah. Like what's the shape of it? Because you just have like a big rock.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was the last question for our Dear Booksplosion live show. Thank you all for joining us. We appreciate you being here. Again, our book of the month this month is The Gilded Wolves, and our live show is going to be on the 28th at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So you should pick it up and join us. And we should be having another Dear Booksplosion live show in December.
Well, now December plans soon.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So look out for that.
Look, mine's signed.
Ooh, mine's not. All right. Well, I'm Jesse.
I'm Kat.
I'm Christine.
We're Booksplosion. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.